AITA for confronting my sister about her family rules at my own wedding. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emma, 28F, who has always had a bit of a controlling streak when it comes to family events. Growing up, it was mostly harmless. She was the organizer type, loved planning birthday parties, holidays, and so on. As adults, she's continued this, but it's escalated to a point where it affects everyone else's life. My fiancé, Josh, 33M, and I got engaged last year, and from the start, Emma was extremely involved in helping with the wedding plans. When we first announced the engagement, she immediately started sending me long emails and texts with lists of family rules for weddings. Some examples. The ceremony had to be at a church. She gave a 3-page justification. No foods outside of her family-approved menu. Only certain types of flowers were allowed. And, of course, you must invite every distant cousin and their plus one, even if you haven't spoken in years. At first, I tried to politely tell her that we appreciated her input, but we wanted to make decisions ourselves. She responded with guilt trips about breaking family tradition and how your father and I spent years making weddings perfect. I tried to compromise where I could. We listened to her suggestions about flowers and music, and we invited distant relatives she cared about, but there were lines we couldn't cross. I wanted the wedding to reflect Josh and me, not just follow some decades-old template Emma believes in. Once we started talking about the seating chart, she really escalated. She insisted that certain people could only sit in prestigious spots because of how she ranked them socially. I pushed back, explaining that we were doing a more casual seating plan and didn't want guests feeling judged. She said I was being selfish and disrespectful. The breaking point came a month before the wedding. Josh and I were finalizing the menu, which included some vegetarian options and a mix of cuisines. Emma called me in tears, saying she couldn't attend if her family standards weren't met. She insisted that no matter what, we must serve a traditional 3-course meal with a roast as the centerpiece because that's what our family does. I tried reasoning with her, but she started threatening to spread drama on social media if we didn't comply. I finally told her, calmly but firmly, that the wedding would reflect what Josh and I wanted, not her expectations. She refused to back down, and this led to a huge blowout. At dinner with our parents, she accused me of destroying family traditions and claimed I didn't care about anyone but myself. I reminded her that this was my wedding and that everyone was welcome to attend, but we weren't going to restructure the event around her demands. She stormed out, slamming the door, and my parents ended up taking her side at first, saying that I should have considered her feelings more. It was extremely stressful. We decided to move forward anyway, planning the wedding without changing anything. Emma didn't come to rehearsal or rehearsal dinner, and I was anxious she wouldn't show up at all. On the day of the wedding, she arrived late, dressed in a way she explicitly said was her version of what a proper wedding guest wears after I had asked her to stick to formal attire, and caused several minor disruptions, like loudly criticizing the music choices and making side comments about the food. It was uncomfortable, but we ignored it and focused on our celebration. After the wedding, Emma called my mom and started a group chat with my relatives claiming that I humiliated her publicly and that she warned me this would happen if I didn't listen. Some relatives reached out to me privately, saying they felt caught in the middle. I told them exactly what happened and that my sister had refused to respect boundaries. Now, my mom and several extended family members are upset with me. They say I should have handled Emma better and kept the peace, while Emma has been messaging me nonstop about how I betrayed family values and shamed her. Josh thinks I did the right thing, but part of me is wondering if I went too far. I try to include her where reasonable, but she crossed boundaries that felt like manipulation and ultimatums. Everyone seems divided, and I feel like I can't even enjoy my own wedding because of the fallout. So, AITA for confronting my sister and refusing to follow her family rules for my wedding. I don't want to just appease her because she's upset. I feel like a wedding should reflect the couple getting married, not one sibling's personal vision of how events must happen. I also worry that this conflict will permanently damage our relationship. I'm willing to maintain communication, but I feel like Emma might never respect my choices. I'm looking for an outside perspective because, right now, It just feels like everyone is angry at me, even though I thought I was doing the reasonable thing. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices and causing a family feud. I, 29F, have always been close with my younger sister, Lily, 26F. We grew up in a pretty traditional household, and although we had our disagreements as teenagers, we always managed to stay on good terms. Recently, though, a situation involving her kids has really strained our relationship, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or if I was justified. Lily has 2 children, Max, 6M, and Ellie, 4F. She and her husband, Tom, 30M, have very relaxed parenting styles. I'm not judgmental in general, but there are a few things that have been bothering me for some time. They let their kids stay up extremely late, don't enforce any screen time limits, and often give in to tantrums just to avoid conflict. I usually try to mind my own business when I visit, but the other day something happened that I just couldn't stay quiet about. My niece and nephew were at our family barbecue. Everyone was having a good time, the kids were running around, and I noticed that Lily had given Max a soda, candy, and a handful of cookies all at once. He was bouncing off the walls in the yard, and Ellie was whining because she wanted the same. Tom tried to calm him down, but it wasn't working. I know it's not my house or my responsibility, but I felt compelled to speak up. I told Lily quietly, "You don't think you're overdoing it with the sugar? He's going to crash soon, and then you'll have 2 completely exhausted kids on your hands." Lily just rolled her eyes and said, "Relax, it's fine. They'll be fine." I insisted, saying that I understand treats are okay, but giving that much sugar at once was setting them up for a meltdown. At that point, Tom chimed in, looking annoyed, and said, "It's our parenting style, thanks." I didn't want to start a huge argument at the barbecue, so I left it alone and tried to distract the kids with games in the yard. Later, when things had calmed down, I pulled Lily aside and told her that I was genuinely worried about the way she handles discipline and diet. Not in a mean way, but as a concerned sister. I said that she might want to reconsider how she gives treats, enforces bedtimes, and sets limits on screens. I thought framing it as concern rather than criticism might help. Lily went off. She got defensive, saying I was being controlling and implying that I didn't trust her to parent her kids. She said that I had no right to lecture her about her choices and that I was making her feel judged in front of our family. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her life, but that I love her and her kids and didn't want to see them suffer from bad habits later. She refused to hear me out and stormed off, leaving me standing awkwardly while my parents tried to mediate. After that, Lily started posting passive-aggressive things on social media about people who think they're better parents than everyone else and mentioning how some family members can't mind their own business. I didn't respond publicly, but I feel like she's clearly talking about me. The next family gathering she skipped entirely, saying she didn't want any tension. My parents called me afterward, saying I should have been more tactful and that maybe I embarrassed Lily in front of others. My dad said that family is supposed to support each other, not lecture each other, even if your intentions are good. I argued that I wasn't trying to humiliate her, just give a bit of advice, and that sometimes tough love is needed when kids are involved. My mom seemed torn, saying she understands both sides. A few of my friends think I was justified in trying to speak up because letting children's routines and habits get out of hand can cause real problems, and family members sometimes have to be honest with each other. Others think I was overstepping and that it's not my place to interfere in someone else's parenting. Since the incident, I've tried to reach out to Lily to make peace, but she's been distant and cold, and she refuses to discuss it. I'm worried this will permanently damage our relationship, but at the same time, I feel like I can't just watch her continue letting her kids run wild without consequences. I don't want to be the bad guy in the family, but I also don't want to ignore behaviors that could negatively affect Max and Ellie. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices and risking a family feud? Or was I right to say something even though it caused tension? Character count, 6,497 if you want. I can also make an even longer version that reaches the full 7,000 characters with more detailed backstory dialogues, and reactions to make it feel like a viral Reddit post. It would include more family dynamics and subtle twists to heighten engagement. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her no kids allowed policy, even though I have a newborn. I'm 28F, and my sister, 32F, is getting married in about 3 months. We've always been close growing up, though we've had our usual sibling spats. I also recently had my first child, a beautiful little boy who is 7 months old now. My sister and I have a good relationship, and I've been excited about her wedding. That said, when she announced the guest list and rules, I ran into a major problem. About a month ago, she told me that the wedding would be strictly adults only. She said she wanted a mature, peaceful environment, and that she didn't want children running around, disrupting the formal setting, or being a distraction. She was very firm about this, and she made it clear that no exceptions would be made. At first, I thought it was a reasonable request, and I figure I could find a babysitter for my son. The issue is my son is still exclusively breastfed and needs me multiple times throughout the day and night. Finding someone I trust to care for him for a whole day and being away from him for such a long time would be incredibly stressful for both of us. I explained this to my sister and tried to negotiate. I said I could potentially step out to feed him or pump, or maybe she could allow me to bring him quietly so I could step outside if he got fussy. She outright refused. She told me she wasn't willing to make exceptions, and she said she wanted the ceremony and reception to be pristine and adult-focused. She even said that if I brought my baby, I'd be disrespecting her day. I tried to compromise further by suggesting I could hire a professional caretaker who would handle everything, or that I could use a discreet baby carrier, and I'd be careful not to disrupt anyone. She didn't budge at all. She started to sound annoyed and said that I was trying to make it about myself, and that she had made it clear she didn't want any children there. She also implied that if I couldn't respect her rules, I probably shouldn't attend. I felt really torn. On one hand, I wanted to support my sister and be part of this huge milestone in her life. On the other hand, I didn't feel comfortable leaving my baby with anyone, and I didn't feel it was fair for me to have to choose between attending her wedding and taking care of my son. I tried to explain this to my parents, who are also invited. They understand my concerns, but keep pressuring me to find a way to attend. They even suggested I bring my son anyway and hope for the best, which made me feel even more conflicted. After a few days of back and forth, I sent my sister a message explaining that I wouldn't be attending. I told her I loved her and wanted to celebrate her day, but that my son's care comes first. I also said I hoped she understood that it wasn't a reflection of my feelings toward her, but it was a practical impossibility for me to be away from him. I offered to celebrate with her in other ways before or after the wedding and suggested that maybe I could host a small family brunch or something to honor her marriage afterward. Her response shocked me. She said that she was disappointed and hurt, and that she felt like I had blown off one of the most important days of her life for my convenience. She also said that she now didn't know if she wanted me involved in other pre-wedding events like the bridal shower or bachelorette party, because she felt I wasn't being supportive. Some of her friends have reached out to me saying I should just make it work and that it's not that hard to leave a baby with someone for a day. My husband also thinks I should try harder to attend, but honestly, the idea of being away from my child that long feels like a nightmare to me. I feel like my sister is being incredibly rigid and insensitive to my situation, and that she's prioritizing the aesthetics of her wedding over her family relationships. I also feel guilty for not attending, and part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. My son's care is non-negotiable, and I honestly don't see a way to make this work without either being extremely anxious or compromising his well-being. I thought she would understand that being a new parent comes with certain limitations. Now, my parents are upset with me, my sister is upset with me, and I feel like I'm in the middle of a huge family drama. I don't want to hurt my sister, but I also feel like attending under these conditions would be impossible. I've tried everything I can think of, and she's still furious. I honestly don't know if I'm being selfish here or if my sister is being unreasonable. I would love to celebrate with her in a way that works for everyone, but it seems like she's unwilling to consider any flexibility at all. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her no kids policy, even though it means missing one of the most important days of her life. Character count, 6,368 if you want. I can also craft a second, even longer version around 7,000 characters that ramps up family drama, tension, and emotional complexity in the style of the most popular Reddit posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us after she got evicted. I, 28F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city with my partner, Sam, 30M. Sam and I have been together for 6 years, and we share expenses fairly evenly. We love our space and our routine, and we've worked hard to make our apartment feel like a home. My younger sister, Emma, 24F, has always been a bit more chaotic and impulsive. She's brilliant and funny, but she's struggled with maintaining stable housing, jobs, and finances for most of her adult life. About 2 weeks ago, Emma called me in tears. She had been living in a cheap shared apartment with her boyfriend, Mike, 26M, and they'd been evicted for unpaid rent. She said she had no place to go and asked if she could stay with me temporarily while she figured things out. I agreed, figuring temporary could mean a week or two, and I knew I couldn't turn her away completely. When she first moved in, I told her the rules. She could stay for a week while figuring out her next step. No overnight guests. She had to contribute to groceries if she stayed more than a few days, and she had to respect our space. She seemed fine with this, and I thought everything would be manageable. The first couple of days were fine, though stressful. Emma was a bit untidy, leaving her laundry in random piles and forgetting to clean up after cooking, but I reminded her gently, and she apologized. Then she dropped the bomb. Mike wanted to move in too. According to Emma, he had nowhere else to go, and she didn't want to be separated from him. She said it would only be temporary, and she promised that he'd fit in just fine. I immediately said no. Our apartment is small, and having an extra person, especially one I don't know well, would drastically change our daily lives. Sam backed me up, pointing out that we barely have space for ourselves as it is, and that adding another adult who wouldn't be contributing financially in any meaningful way would be unfair. Emma got upset, claiming I was being selfish and that family should help each other. She said that since I have a stable life, I had a moral obligation to help her and Mike. I tried explaining my perspective. I told her I wasn't trying to abandon her, but that having both of them in our apartment long-term wasn't feasible. I offered alternatives. I could help her search for a cheaper place, give her some money for a deposit, or even temporarily cover a small Airbnb or hostel. Emma said no. She didn't want to leave me, and she was hurt that I trusted her less than a stranger. Things escalated over the next few days. Emma started passive-aggressively commenting on my cooking, my cleaning habits, and Sam's behavior. She would invite Mike over for long visits without asking, claiming it was temporary, and he would end up staying late into the night. Sam and I began to feel like guests in our own home. One morning, I woke up to find Mike had made breakfast for everyone and left the kitchen in complete chaos. When I asked him to clean up, he rolled his eyes and said, "I just thought I'd help." The breaking point came a few days later. Emma told me she was going to start looking for a new apartment with Mike or without me if I didn't allow him to move in immediately. She said I was choosing him over family and threatened not to speak to me if I didn't comply. At that moment, I realized that giving him would not solve the problem. It would only make it worse. I calmly told her that she could stay for the week we agreed on, but that Mike would not be allowed to live here. She packed up her things angrily and went to stay at a friend's place temporarily. I thought things might cool down, but then I received a long text from her blaming me for destroying our relationship and claiming I had been cruel and heartless. My parents got involved after she called them crying, and they sided with her to some degree, saying I should be more understanding and family comes first. Sam and I were frustrated and felt like we were being punished for having boundaries. Since then, I've had mixed feelings. I feel guilty because I don't want to hurt my sister, but I also know that having Mike move and would have created long-term tension and stress in my home. I've offered other ways to support her, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve living here. Sam and I are trying to maintain our routines, but I keep worrying about family drama escalating. I'm wondering if I overreacted or if I should have handled it differently. Am I really the asshole for setting boundaries and refusing to let Mike move in, even though it upset my sister? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 27F, have always been very close to my sister, Emily, 30F. We've grown up practically attached at the hip, shared bedrooms until we were teenagers, and confided in each other about basically everything. Over the past few years, though, things have started to change. Emily met her fiancé, Mark, 32M, about 3 years ago. From the start, I tried to be friendly and supportive, but the more I got to know him, the more uncomfortable I became. Mark is charming in public and has this perfect boyfriend persona that everyone seems to fall for, but behind closed doors, he's manipulative and controlling. I noticed little things at first. He constantly interrupts Emily when she's speaking. He dismisses her ideas, and he makes these backhanded compliments that leave her doubting herself. I tried to talk to Emily about it once, gently, hoping she wouldn't be defensive, but she brushed it off and said I was reading too much into things. Fast forward a year, and things got worse. I started noticing that he would gaslight her whenever they disagreed. For example, if she mentioned wanting to go to an event and he didn't want to go, he'd insist she never wanted to do anything fun and somehow twist the conversation until she apologized for even suggesting it. I've witnessed a few arguments, and it's exhausting to watch. Emily still loves him, so I didn't want to create conflict, but I began keeping my distance. Now, Emily announced she was engaged about 6 months ago. I was happy for her initially, but as the wedding planning progressed, Mark's controlling tendencies became more blatant. He insisted on dictating guest lists, seating arrangements, and even what people were allowed to wear. He tried to veto my attendance at some of the pre-wedding events, claiming they were too personal or too small. I brushed it off and assumed he was just being a bridezilla, but then he started speaking directly to me in a way that felt intentionally antagonistic. The tipping point came last week. Emily had planned a small, casual dinner with her closest friends and family to discuss wedding ideas. Mark showed up uninvited. He immediately started criticizing the food, the decor ideas, and even my outfit. When I tried to interject politely, he talked over me, making jokes at my expense and calling me overly dramatic for even having an opinion. Emily seemed uncomfortable but didn't confront him. I ended up leaving early because I was too frustrated to stay. After that, I sent Emily a message explaining why I felt uncomfortable attending events where Mark would be present if his behavior didn't change. I wasn't trying to dictate her life, but I needed to set boundaries. I explained that I loved her, I wanted to celebrate her marriage, but I couldn't be around someone who treated her, and by extension me, in such a dismissive and manipulative way. Emily responded by saying that I was being selfish and choosing Mark over her. She accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness and suggested that if I truly loved her, I would put aside my feelings and be there for her on the wedding day. I told her that my issue isn't with her, it's with Mark's behavior, and I can't in good conscience support a relationship that I see is harmful to her. She didn't take it well and sent me a long message saying that I was breaking the family apart and that I needed to get over my personal vendetta if I wanted to be part of the family. I haven't responded yet. Since then, I've been getting messages from relatives and friends saying I need to lighten up and stop being dramatic because Emily is so happy and that it's just one day. Some have even hinted that I'm overreacting and that I should just attend the wedding and deal with Mark's behavior silently. I feel torn. On one hand, I want to support my sister and celebrate her happiness. On the other hand, I feel like attending her wedding under these circumstances would compromise my values and sanity. I can't ignore how I feel about Mark's treatment of her and me, and I worry that showing up will implicitly condone it. I've considered attending only for a short period or avoiding direct interaction with him, but I'm not sure if that's enough. I can already feel the fallout. Emily has been distant and curt since our last exchange, and I know my absence will cause family drama. I want to be there for my sister, but I also feel like I can't sacrifice my boundaries just to avoid uncomfortable conversations. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? AITA for refusing to host my in-laws after they volunteered themselves to watch my toddler for a week without asking me. I, 28F, have a 2-year-old daughter, Lila, and my husband, 30M, and I recently bought our first house. It's a modest 3-bedroom, and we've been really focused on getting it set up for Lila, who has just started walking and getting into everything. My husband's parents have always been a little overbearing, but generally well-meaning, though they have a habit of volunteering themselves for things without asking. A few weeks ago, my husband told me his parents wanted to come stay for a week. He said they really want to help with Lila for a bit. They think it'll give us a break. I was a little taken aback because we had not discussed the timing, and I also knew from past experiences that their idea of helping usually meant taking over completely and criticizing everything I do. I voiced my concern to my husband, explaining that our home was still settling and I didn't feel comfortable having anyone stay for that long without proper planning. He brushed it off, saying they were family and it would be good for everyone. A week before their supposed arrival, I made a list of practical concerns. Our bedrooms are small, there's only one bathroom, Lila's schedule is very rigid, and I need quiet time in the evenings to manage my anxiety. I tried to explain this to my husband and suggested maybe they could visit for a weekend instead of a week. He agreed reluctantly, but told me not to worry, because they're just excited to spend time with Lila. The day they arrived, it quickly became apparent that they were not planning on being a weekend visit. They brought multiple suitcases, a cooler full of food, and proceeded to start rearranging Lila's toys and my kitchen cabinets. I told them I had specific places for everything because Lila has a tendency to pull items off shelves, but they ignored me and continued helping. My husband laughed it off, saying they were just trying to be efficient. Within the first day, I realized hosting them for a full week was going to be more exhausting than anything else. They insisted on feeding Lila only what they thought was healthy, even though I had a schedule and specific meals planned. They criticized my parenting choices constantly, from what clothes I dressed her in to how I handled her tantrums. They also started questioning my housekeeping habits, saying our home wasn't child-proof enough despite being safer than any advice I had ever read. By the third day, I was drained. I asked my husband if we could maybe limit our time with them and spend some quiet time as a family. He got defensive, saying I was being rude and ungrateful because they had come all this way to help. I explained that I wasn't ungrateful for their desire to be involved. I was upset because they came uninvited for such an extended period and were dismissive of my authority as a parent in my own home. Things escalated when they tried to take Lila to a park without asking me, claiming it would give her more fresh air than she's getting inside. I had made plans to take her myself after a nap, so I stopped them at the door. They were visibly offended, accusing me of being overprotective and controlling. My husband sided with me at first, but then started to say I was overreacting to minor issues. By the 5th day, I had to step back entirely. I started spending time in my bedroom with Lila to escape the constant commentary and unsolicited advice. My husband tried to mediate, but his attempts usually ended with him saying, "Can't you just let them do things their way for a week?" I felt like I was losing control of my own household and my parenting. Finally, on the last day, I told them I appreciated their visit, but that next time we needed to plan things ahead and that a week-long stay wasn't feasible. My mother-in-law responded by saying I was cold and ungrateful, and that I should be happy they were willing to help. My father-in-law chimed in, accusing me of treating them like strangers instead of family. My husband didn't really say anything during this exchange, just looked uncomfortable. After they left, I felt relieved but also shaken. My husband admitted he should have been more assertive about boundaries, but also said I overreacted to their presence. He said they were just trying to help and that I should have appreciated it more. I explained that I do appreciate them and their willingness to be involved, but hosting unplanned guests, especially when it interferes with our routines and parenting, is very stressful for me. Now there's tension in the family. My in-laws have started hinting that I'm difficult and not family-oriented because I refuse to let them stay long-term. My husband seems torn and sometimes brings up the idea that maybe I should have been nicer to them. Friends in my own family have mostly said I was justified, but I feel guilty and unsure if I'm being too rigid. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my in-laws for an extended stay and setting strict boundaries in my own home. Character count, 6,472 if you want. I can create another one in a completely different scenario, but with the same viral Reddit vibe, hitting closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? So, this is going to be a long one, and I really need an outside perspective because my family is divided, and I feel like I might be overreacting. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always been close, even if we bicker like any siblings. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about 3 years. I've met him multiple times, and while I didn't hate him at first, over the past year, I've noticed things that make me extremely uncomfortable. Mark has always had a controlling streak. At first, it was small stuff. He didn't like Emily talking to certain friends, would get irritated if she didn't answer his texts immediately, and made comments that were subtly demeaning about her career. She brushed it off, saying he was just joking or that he cared about her. I tried talking to her about it gently, but she got defensive, so I backed off. Things escalated after they got engaged. Mark started openly criticizing Emily's choices, sometimes in front of me. For example, at a dinner I hosted, he commented that Emily's promotion at work was just luck and that she probably wouldn't handle more responsibility. He also has a habit of talking over her in conversations and dismissing her opinions. At first, I chalked it up to bad habits, but then there were more serious incidents. About 6 months ago, Emily and I were out shopping when Mark called her. He demanded she come home immediately because he thought she was ignoring him. She tried to explain she was busy, but he got louder and hung up. She looked visibly stressed, and I offered to walk her home, but she insisted she'd be fine. Over the next few weeks, I noticed she became more withdrawn. She canceled plans with friends, rarely spoke up at family gatherings, and seemed anxious whenever Mark was around. I asked her if she was okay, and she said everything was fine, which I suspected was not the truth. Then came the wedding planning. Emily wanted me to help as a bridesmaid, which I was initially excited about. However, the closer we got to the date, the more controlling Mark became. He started dictating everything: what color dresses the bridesmaids could wear, which flowers were allowed, and even who could be invited. Emily tried to stand up to him occasionally, but he would guilt-trip her about ruining his vision or accuse her of being selfish. The final straw happened during a dress fitting. Mark showed up uninvited, which already made things tense, and proceeded to criticize not only the dresses but my hair and makeup choices. He made a comment that I was too old to wear that style, which was not only rude but completely unnecessary. I stayed calm, but Emily noticed I was upset. After that, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark wasn't just controlling Emily. He was toxic to everyone around him. A week later, Emily texted me asking me to just come to the wedding and be supportive, even if I didn't like Mark. I was torn because I love my sister and wanted to be there for her. But after thinking about it, I realized I couldn't attend a celebration where someone I believed was emotionally abusive would be the center of attention. I called Emily and explained my decision, trying to be as gentle as possible. I told her I loved her, but that I couldn't be part of a day where I felt uncomfortable and where I thought her partner's behavior was harmful. The reaction was immediate and extreme. Emily cried and accused me of choosing Mark over her, which I tried to explain wasn't the case. She said I was being dramatic and selfish and that she needed her sister there. My parents are split. My mom thinks I should attend no matter what because it's Emily's day, but my dad completely supports my decision. My friends are mostly on my side, saying that refusing to condone abusive behavior is valid. Since then, my family has been in an uproar. Mark has told Emily that my absence proves I'm a bad influence on her, and Emily has been giving me the cold shoulder. My extended family is divided. Some are shocked that I would even consider skipping a wedding, while others say I'm brave for standing my ground. Emily occasionally texts me, guilt-tripping me by saying she feels abandoned, and that breaks my heart. I keep second-guessing myself. Am I overreacting? Should I just go to the wedding to avoid family drama? Even though I think Mark is manipulative, I know that my absence won't stop Emily from marrying him, and I don't want to make her feel unsupported. On the other hand, I also don't want to participate in something that makes me uncomfortable and seems to reward controlling behavior. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she sabotaged my wedding plans. So, this is going to be long, but I need to get all the context out. I, 28F, have been planning my wedding for about a year, and my sister, Emily, 30F, has always been difficult, to put it lightly. She's the kind of person who seems to feel the need to make everything about her, but I always try to accommodate her because, well, she's my sister. About 3 months before the wedding, I found out she had told my fiancé, Mark, 30M, that he should reconsider marrying me because he could do so much better. She actually went as far as to suggest that he would regret it, and that she knew women who would be more fun and spontaneous than me. I was shocked, obviously, and Mark confronted her about it. She denied it completely and claimed she was just joking around, but the fact that she said these things in private to him really hurt me. I confronted her too, but she brushed it off as overreacting. I decided to move forward, trying not to let it ruin the wedding. But then things escalated. About a month before the wedding, I was planning the seating arrangement, and I noticed that Emily had secretly changed RSVPs from people she didn't like or didn't think fit in with her friends. A couple of my uncles and my best friend were told there wasn't room for them at the table, and my caterer confirmed that some of the meal orders had been altered. When I confronted her, she said she was just helping streamline things and that I trust her too much to do it properly. At that point, I realized she was actively sabotaging my wedding. Fast forward to the week of the wedding. I had asked Emily to handle the decorations for one part of the reception hall because I trusted her taste a bit more than some of my other relatives. When I arrived to check, she had completely redecorated the space in a style that was nothing like what we had agreed upon. On top of that, she had left glitter and adhesive residue all over the tables and chairs, and the staff said it would take hours to fix. I was panicking because we had only a few hours before guests arrived. Emily's excuse: I thought it needed more personality. I told her to leave immediately, and my mother got involved. Emily claimed I was being too controlling and stormed off, leaving me to clean up the mess with my mom and bridesmaids. The wedding itself went fine, but it was stressful, and I was furious. After the honeymoon, Emily called me crying and saying she had nowhere to stay because her apartment had flooded and she needed a place temporarily. My mom, who tends to side with Emily, urged me to let her stay for a few weeks. I told my mom that after everything that had happened, I couldn't trust Emily in my home, and I wouldn't be comfortable having her live with me. Mom and Emily both got angry, accusing me of being cold and ungrateful. Emily said I was punishing her for one mistake, even though I reminded her there were multiple instances of sabotage. Mom claimed I should forgive and forget because she's family. I explained that I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting my own mental health and boundaries. I offered to help her find a temporary apartment or pay for a hotel for a couple of weeks, but she refused and said I was being cruel. Now, the situation has escalated. Emily has been posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about people who prioritize themselves over family and sisters who are impossible to please, which I assume is directed at me. My friends have been divided. Some say I'm right to protect my home, and others think I'm overreacting and should just let it slide. Honestly, I feel justified because what she did to my wedding wasn't minor. It wasn't just a joke or a small mistake. It was deliberate interference that caused stress, extra work, and humiliation on my big day. I don't want her living with me because I can't trust her, and I don't want to relive any of that chaos. However, part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. I know she's in a tough spot with her apartment, and I do want to help her in some way, but I also feel like boundaries are necessary. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she sabotaged my wedding? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she sold everything and got evicted. I, 34M, have always been the responsible sibling. My younger sister, Emily, 29F, has a history of making impulsive decisions that tend to backfire. We grew up in a middle-class household, And while I was saving for my future and investing carefully, Emily seemed to live month to month, hopping between jobs, cities, and hobbies. For years, I tried to support her in small ways, helping her move, lending money when she truly needed it. But I always drew a line because I knew she needed to learn responsibility herself. 2 months ago, Emily called me in a panic. She explained that she had sold her apartment, all her furniture, and most of her belongings because she wanted to simplify her life and pursue some kind of spiritual journey she had read about online. She was living out of a backpack for a few weeks and realized it wasn't sustainable, and now she was being evicted from a friend's spare room she'd been staying in. She wanted to move back in with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. Here's the tricky part. I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment that I've been renting for the past 5 years. I work long hours, and my life is structured in a way that suits me. I don't have a huge income, and while I could theoretically accommodate her for a few weeks, I wasn't comfortable with it. My sister has stayed with me before for a couple of weeks at a time, but every visit has ended with tension. She has a habit of leaving messes, making large amounts of noise at odd hours, and borrowing my things without asking. I told her honestly that I couldn't have her move in with me. I explained that my apartment is small, I have a strict routine for work and personal projects, and her moving and would disrupt everything. I also reminded her of past times she overstayed and didn't contribute to household expenses. She responded by accusing me of being selfish, unsupportive, and cruel. She said that I always act like I'm better than everyone, and that family should help each other no matter what. I tried to compromise by offering her alternative solutions. I suggested she look into temporary sublets, short-term rentals, or even staying in a hostel while she got back on her feet. I even offered to help her search for jobs or organize her finances if she wanted. But she dismissed all of this, insisting that none of it would feel like home and that I was abandoning her. Things got worse when my parents got involved. I had initially thought it best to handle this between Emily and me, but she called them and framed it as me refusing to help her in her hour of need. They were understandably upset, saying I should be there for my sister, and that a few weeks isn't the end of the world. I explained my concerns, my small apartment, my work schedule, and the pattern of her previous stays turning stressful. I even reminded them that she has a history of moving back and forth, often disrupting my life for months at a time. They argued that this was different and that I should just make it work because she had nowhere else to go. I decided to stick to my boundaries. I reiterated to Emily that I loved her and wanted to support her, but I couldn't do so by having her live with me. She then accused me of being heartless and manipulative, saying I was trying to punish her for her life choices. I told her that I wasn't punishing her, but I had a right to set limits to protect my own stability. The fallout has been brutal. She hasn't spoken to me since, and my parents are giving me the silent treatment, occasionally sending pointed messages about family and responsibility. I feel guilty at times, but I also feel like giving in would reinforce unhealthy patterns. I've already helped her in the past, sometimes at significant personal cost, and I can't keep sacrificing my own well-being for her mistakes. A few friends have weighed in. Some say I'm doing the right thing by maintaining boundaries, while others think I'm being cold and unsympathetic. Honestly, I'm torn. I hate seeing her in distress, but I also know that accommodating her would likely result in chaos, arguments, and more stress in the long run. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she sold all her belongings and got evicted? I'm trying to balance compassion with self-preservation, but it seems like nobody sees my side except me. I'm open to suggestions on how to support her in a meaningful way without sacrificing my own stability. But as of now, I feel like standing my ground is the only responsible choice. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after what happened at the engagement party? I, 32F, have always had a good relationship with my sister, Laura, 29F. We're close in age, but our personalities couldn't be more different. I've always been the more reserved one, while Laura is extremely outgoing and loves to be the center of attention. That being said, we've always respected each other's boundaries and gotten along well. Our parents live across the country, so it's usually just the two of us plus a few friends that make up our family gatherings. Laura got engaged about 6 months ago to a man named Derek, 33M. I had met him a few times before the engagement, and he seemed polite enough, though I couldn't shake the feeling that he had a bit of an ego. I chalked it up to first impressions and figured I'd get to know him better over time. About 2 months ago, Laura asked if Derek could stay at my house for a week while they were in town for an engagement party. She explained that their hotel had some issues and that they needed a place to stay temporarily. Normally, I wouldn't have a problem with this, but I had a busy work schedule and my house is not huge. I told her I might be able to accommodate them for a couple of nights, but a whole week would be difficult. Laura insisted that it would only be for a few days and that Derek wouldn't be a problem. I reluctantly agreed to let them stay for 3 nights, thinking it was manageable. The first night was fine. Derek was polite and helped with dishes, and I tried to make an effort to be welcoming. The second night, though, started to shift. Derek began making small, passive-aggressive comments about my apartment. Things like, "Wow, you actually have a microwave? I guess it works. And you don't have a coffee machine? How do you survive?" I laughed them off at first, but it started to get under my skin. By the third day, things escalated. Derek insisted on reorganizing my kitchen cabinets because it just makes more sense this way. I told him that I liked things where they were and that it wasn't necessary, but he did it anyway. That evening, he also started loudly criticizing the way I cooked dinner, giving unsolicited tips and remarking that my spice rack arrangement was inefficient. I started to feel like my personal space was being completely disregarded. It all came to a head on the night of the engagement party. Laura, Derek, and I all went together. The party itself was fine, but on the way home, Derek started drinking and became very aggressive. He made a number of comments about my life choices, my apartment, and even my career. At one point, he said, "You know, you could be more successful if you were more like Laura." I was shocked and asked him to stop. He shrugged it off and laughed, clearly thinking it was a joke. Laura didn't intervene, and I ended up spending the rest of the ride home feeling humiliated. When we got back to my house, I told Derek that I didn't think it was appropriate for him to stay with me any longer. He tried to argue that he had nowhere else to go and that Laura had promised me. I reminded him that I had only agreed to 3 nights and that we were beyond that now. Laura tried to mediate, but ended up taking his side, saying, "He's just stressed from the party. He'll calm down tomorrow." I told them both that I wasn't comfortable with him staying anymore and that they would need to find a hotel. Derek got visibly angry, slammed the door to my guest room, and muttered something about me being selfish and petty. The next morning, I called a few local hotels and helped them find a room. Derek refused to talk to me directly, but left without any further confrontation. Laura was upset and said I had ruined everything and that I was being unreasonable. She said that Derek had been going through a rough night and that I should have been more understanding. I explained that my boundaries had been crossed multiple times and that having Derek stay any longer was not just uncomfortable, it was disrespectful. Laura cried and accused me of being dramatic and said I was choosing an argument over family. Since then, I've had very minimal contact with Laura. She has sent a few texts asking why I can't just forgive Derek and move on, but I haven't responded. Some friends have told me that I overreacted and that I should have been more accommodating, but honestly, I feel like I have every right to protect my personal space and not tolerate someone being verbally aggressive and disrespectful in my home. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after what happened at the engagement party. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by insisting on following my own moral code. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Lisa, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who never got in trouble, who always got praise from our parents, and who, somehow, managed to make me feel like I was constantly in the wrong. As adults, our relationship has been better, but there's still this underlying tension that comes up at family events or whenever we disagree on something serious. Lisa got engaged about a year ago to a guy named Jordan, 33M, and honestly, he seemed like a perfectly normal, nice guy. They met through work, and from what I could tell, they genuinely liked each other. When she first told me the news, I was happy for her, and I tried to put aside any past resentment. I even helped with some of the planning, like picking flowers and scouting venues, because she wanted my input. Everything seemed fine until the topic of her wedding registry came up. Lisa has always been someone who's very traditional and, honestly, a little materialistic. She and Jordan registered for a lot of very expensive items: high-end kitchen appliances, designer home goods, and luxury bedding. I don't have a problem with them wanting nice things, but as the registry conversations went on, I realized that many of the gifts were things they were clearly capable of buying themselves. I started feeling uncomfortable with the idea of friends and family spending thousands of dollars on things that the couple could afford without anyone else's help. I brought it up gently to Lisa, suggesting maybe they could focus the registry on things like small household items, experiences, or charity donations. She laughed it off and said, "People like giving us nice things, just go with it." I decided to go ahead and buy a gift from the registry because I didn't want to cause drama, but I chose something modest, around $50, when many other gifts were hundreds or even thousands of dollars. At the rehearsal dinner, I started noticing a pattern. Everyone was talking about how extravagant the gifts were and how impressive Lisa's choices were. I felt out of place, like I had intentionally not kept up with the standard. The next day, I saw Lisa opening gifts and getting very excited about the expensive ones while barely acknowledging the smaller, thoughtful gifts. At that point, I realized I couldn't just silently go along with this. The morning of the wedding, I asked Jordan quietly if they had considered asking for charitable donations instead of all these luxury gifts, and I explained that I felt uncomfortable seeing friends and family spending so much money on things they could afford themselves. Jordan seemed a little caught off guard, but said, "We're trying to make our day special. I understand your point, but this is important to Lisa." I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to stand up for what I believed in, even if it meant stepping on toes. So when it was time for the ceremony, I made a choice. Right before the wedding began, I approached the officiant and asked if it would be possible to say a few words about generosity and kindness in a way that wasn't focused on material gifts. The officiant agreed, and I improvised a short speech about the importance of celebrating love through meaningful actions and thoughtful gestures rather than expensive presents. I didn't mention anyone by name, and I thought I had delivered tastefully. What I didn't expect was the reaction. Lisa's expression completely changed. She started crying and whispered to Jordan that I was ruining everything. Several guests later told me that the speech had come across as a direct criticism of Lisa's choices. Lisa refused to talk to me during the rest of the reception, and Jordan was visibly uncomfortable. My parents were upset too, saying I had overstepped and embarrassed my sister on her wedding day. After the wedding, I tried to apologize, explaining that my intention wasn't to attack Lisa personally, but rather to share a perspective I felt was important. Lisa responded in a group text to the family saying, "I don't know why my name felt the need to lecture everyone on generosity at my wedding. It was hurtful, unnecessary, and completely inappropriate." Other family members chimed in, some agreeing with her, some expressing that I went too far, but were quieter about it. Since then, Lisa has refused to speak to me except when forced, and Jordan has made it clear that he doesn't want me involved in any future family events. I've had a lot of time to think about this. On one hand, I do feel like I was trying to encourage mindfulness and generosity in a way that aligned with my moral beliefs. On the other hand, I understand that a wedding is meant to be about the couple's happiness, and that my intervention might have overshadowed that. Friends outside of the family have told me I might have overreacted and that this wasn't the right venue for a moral lesson. I don't regret standing by my principles entirely, but I can't deny that I created tension and hurt feelings. I just keep wondering, was it truly wrong of me to prioritize what I felt was ethical over avoiding confrontation? Or should I have stayed silent for the sake of my sister's big day? AITA for causing a rift at my sister's wedding because I wouldn't stay quiet about the gift situation? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of a long-standing family conflict that no one acknowledges? So, this is going to be long because the family situation is complicated, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 28F, come from a pretty traditional family, where appearances are everything and disagreements are swept under the rug. My cousin, let's call her Emma, 30F, is getting married next month, and there's been a huge push from everyone to make sure I'm attending. Here's the problem. Emma and I have never gotten along, and it's not some petty disagreement. It's decades of tension and what I genuinely consider emotional abuse on her part. Emma and I grew up in the same house for a few years because our families were very close, but she always treated me like I was beneath her. She was manipulative and controlling even as a teenager, constantly finding ways to make me feel insecure, belittled, or excluded. For example, if we were at family gatherings, she would invent reasons for me not to participate in activities or insist that I wouldn't understand things that were supposedly important. She would constantly put me down in front of relatives, calling me lazy, weird, or unworthy. My parents always brushed it off as sibling rivalry or told me I was being too sensitive, which only reinforced the feeling that I had no protection. As we got older, I distanced myself as much as I could, but there was always this expectation that I would show up for family events, birthdays, and holidays. Every time I tried to set boundaries, Emma would escalate. She would guilt-trip our parents, who would in turn guilt me, saying things like, "You're breaking up the family," or "She's your cousin. You have to make it work." I tried my best for years, but reached a point where I realized that attending her events caused me genuine anxiety, stress, and emotional exhaustion. Fast forward to now, Emma is engaged and very traditional in her planning. She's invited me, along with my entire immediate family. From the very beginning, I hesitated to RSVP because I knew this wedding would be a minefield of tension. A few weeks ago, my parents called me to pressure me into going, saying, "You have to be there. It's not about you, it's about the family." I told them honestly that I couldn't in good conscience attend. I explained that my relationship with Emma has been toxic for years, and being in the same room as her for such a significant event would likely lead to a scene or at least a very stressful experience for me. My parents were upset, but didn't push too hard, assuming that maybe Emma would reach out to smooth things over. Well, Emma did reach out, but not in a conciliatory way. She sent me a long message detailing how hurt she was that I wasn't attending her wedding. She accused me of holding grudges over trivial things and suggested that I was letting the past dictate my future, implying that I was being petty and selfish. I tried to respond calmly, reiterating that this is not about small grudges, but about my mental well-being and the long-term patterns of how she has treated me. She blocked me shortly after. Then, the drama hit the extended family group chat. Emma posted a generic message about how so sad some family members can't be with us on our special day, and everyone started asking me why I wasn't going. I responded briefly, saying that I've made a personal choice for my mental health, and that while I wish her happiness, I cannot attend. Some family members expressed support, but many said I was overreacting, being dramatic, or selfish. One of my aunts even suggested I owe Emma this one day, because family loyalty should come first. Since then, my parents have been walking a fine line between understanding and subtly shaming me. They keep saying things like, "We know you've had issues, but can't you put it aside for one day?" Or, "You're missing memories that will last forever." I've tried to explain that my attendance wouldn't create memories. It would just be me enduring a situation that has caused me anxiety for years. I also offered an alternative. I would happily celebrate with Emma privately, maybe take her out for dinner after the wedding or send a gift, but apparently that's not enough. I also have younger cousins who I'm close to, and honestly, that's part of the heartbreak. I know they will be disappointed if I don't show up, and that makes me feel guilty. But at the same time, I've realized that sacrificing my own well-being to maintain appearances has been a recurring theme in this family, and I don't want to continue that pattern. Recently, a couple of more distant relatives have reached out to me privately, suggesting that I might be the asshole for letting a wedding divide the family and making Emma's big day about yourself. I can see why they might think that, but from my perspective, attending would not be a kind or loving act. It would be self-destructive. At this point, I'm just exhausted from the back and forth. I feel like no matter what I do, people will either criticize me for being absent or criticize me for attending and potentially having confrontation. I really don't want a scene, and I want to protect my mental health. I also want to respect boundaries I've set for myself regarding toxic relationships, but I feel like the pressure from the family is relentless. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding even though it will upset my extended family? I feel like I am doing the responsible thing for my mental health, but I can't shake the guilt and constant judgment from people who don't understand the history. I just want to know if standing up for myself makes me the bad guy here, or if this is genuinely a situation where self-preservation is justified, even if it ruffles some feathers in a very tradition-obsessed family. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after a huge argument over a small favor? I, 32F, have always been the one in my family who ends up hosting people. I live in a moderately sized apartment in a decent part of town, and over the years I've hosted friends, cousins, and even my parents multiple times. I'm happy to help when I can, but I also have my limits, which apparently my sister, Rachel, 29F, has been completely ignoring. Rachel and I have always had a complicated relationship. We love each other, but there's this long-standing pattern where she asks for favors and assumes I'll just say yes because we're family. Usually it's small stuff, helping her move, babysitting her kids when she goes on weekend trips, or lending her money for emergencies. I've never minded helping her in moderation, but over the past year, I started noticing that the small favors were piling up and affecting my own life. Work stress had been mounting, and I was starting to feel used rather than genuinely supportive. About a month ago, Rachel got engaged to her fiancé, Kevin, 31M. I honestly like Kevin and think he's a good guy, but he's very close to Rachel and seems to mirror her sense of entitlement. Soon after the engagement, Rachel called me and asked if Kevin could stay at my apartment for a week while he was in town for a job interview. She framed it like it was no big deal. He'll just crash on your couch, and it won't be a problem. You don't even have to do anything. I hesitated because my apartment is small, I work from home, and honestly, I was dreading the disruption. I told her I needed to check my schedule and think about it, which I thought was a reasonable response. She got annoyed but agreed to wait for my answer. A few days later, I told her I couldn't accommodate him. I explained that my work schedule is unpredictable and I don't feel comfortable having someone stay with me for that long when I barely have time to manage my own life. Rachel got extremely defensive. She said I was being selfish and accused me of holding grudges over past favors. She even tried guilt-tripping me by bringing up times I'd helped her with moving and other big things in the past, implying that those should automatically obligate me to let Kevin stay. I tried to explain that past help doesn't mean I'm a hotel and that I have boundaries too, but she wouldn't let it go. The argument escalated over texts. She sent things like, "I can't believe you do this to your own sister," and "If this is about you being too busy, maybe you need to rethink your priorities." Kevin got involved, and while he initially said he understood, I could tell he was frustrated with me too. Rachel then started calling mutual friends, asking if they thought I was being unreasonable. Most of my friends told her that hosting for a week is a significant request and that I was well within my rights to refuse. Things got even worse when she showed up at my apartment unexpectedly one evening. I was working late on a project and had just finished a stressful client call when I opened the door to find Rachel and Kevin standing there. She said she just wanted to talk it out. I was so taken aback that I froze. She kept pushing for Kevin to stay, saying things like, "It'll just be for a couple of nights. We'll barely be in your way." I had to tell her firmly to leave because I felt blindsided and cornered in my own home. Kevin looked embarrassed, and Rachel was furious. She stormed off, saying I was ruining her engagement and calling me selfish and cold. The aftermath has been tense. My parents tried to mediate, but Rachel insisted she was right and I was being cruel. She has barely spoken to me since, and when I see mutual friends, the subject comes up. Some have taken her side, saying I should have made a little sacrifice for my sister, while others agree that having someone stay for a week without a solid plan is a big ask. I feel conflicted because I don't want to damage my relationship with my sister, but I also feel like I should not have to compromise my personal space and mental health. My friends keep telling me that setting boundaries is healthy and that Rachel is trying to manipulate me, but part of me worries that I am really being insensitive, especially during such an exciting time in her life. Since then, she's been posting subtle things on social media that seem aimed at making me look like the bad sister, and I honestly don't know how to fix this without completely giving in to her demands, which I know I will regret. I keep replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if there was a better way to refuse without creating such a mess. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment, even though she sees it as a small favor. The story has been edited for length and pacing. It runs around 6,300 characters and sticks closely to popular Reddit AITA narrative structures. Tense family dynamics, boundary conflicts, escalating arguments, and emotional fallout. If you want, I can also create a second version that pushes it closer to 7,000 characters with even more interpersonal tension and subtle moral ambiguity, making it even more viral Reddit story style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? So, I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, who I've been close to my entire life. We grew up together, shared bedrooms, had each other's backs, the whole thing. Our relationship has always been pretty tight, but things started getting complicated about a year ago when she got engaged to her now fiancé, Ryan, 27M. At first, I tried to be supportive. I really did. I know it's normal for siblings to have disagreements over partners, but Ryan just set off alarm bells for me from the beginning. He's controlling, manipulative, and extremely dismissive of Emma's opinions. For example, last Christmas, he insisted that Emma couldn't cook a family dish the way our grandmother used to make it because it would embarrass me in front of my family. Emma tried to argue, but ended up crying in the kitchen while Ryan told her she was being dramatic. I was furious, but she brushed it off as a one-time thing. Over the next several months, I noticed a pattern. Ryan criticized her appearance constantly, from her clothing choices to her weight. He would make jokes in front of our parents about how she was too sensitive or needed to toughen up. I tried to talk to Emma, but she kept defending him, saying that I was overreacting and that she loved him. So I had to step back, albeit reluctantly. Fast forward to a few months ago, Ryan started insisting that Emma cut off certain friends and even limited her family time. He said that if she really loved him, she'd want to spend every weekend with me, not her family. This was the final straw for me. I confronted Emma and told her I couldn't be around someone who treated her that way. She got defensive and said that if I loved her, I'd accept Ryan because he makes her happy. I told her I couldn't, and I meant it. Now, we're at the present. Emma's wedding is in 3 weeks. She sent me a formal invitation and asked if I'd be in her bridal party. I told her I wasn't comfortable being around Ryan and that I wouldn't be attending. She flipped. She accused me of trying to ruin her wedding, said I was being selfish, and even claimed I was manipulating our parents by making them choose sides. Our parents are torn because they love both of us, but they also see some of the things I've pointed out about Ryan. They haven't outright condemned him, but have expressed concern privately. What really got messy is when Emma posted a passive-aggressive message on social media about siblings who refuse to show up when it matters most. Several mutual friends reached out to me, asking if I was going to reconcile. I explained my side, and some agreed with me while others told me I was being unreasonable. I know this is a wedding, and weddings are supposed to be happy. I've tried everything to reason with Emma calmly. I've written long emails, offered to attend pre-wedding events where Ryan wouldn't be present, and even suggested family-only meetups before or after the ceremony. She has dismissed every attempt. I feel like my presence would validate Ryan's behavior and hurt Emma in the long run by giving him the impression that I condone how he treats her. I haven't spoken to Emma in person since the fight about the wedding, and honestly, it's tearing me apart. I love my sister more than anything, but I also feel like I need to stand firm. Some of our family members are quietly taking my side, but others are pressuring me to go anyway, saying that weddings are about the bride and you should put aside your issues. I'm starting to feel guilty, wondering if I'm the one being the problem. But at the same time, I keep replaying all the times Ryan dismissed, belittled, or manipulated Emma. I can't shake the feeling that attending the wedding would be more about making Emma temporarily happy at the cost of enabling her fiancé's behavior long-term. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of family tension? I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially with my younger sister, Claire, 25F. Growing up, our household was incredibly competitive. Our parents, though well-meaning, had a tendency to compare us constantly. I was the responsible one, always praised for good grades and discipline, while Claire was the creative one who could do no wrong in their eyes. On top of that, I've struggled with social anxiety and low self-esteem since my teens, which made interactions with my family especially stressful. Things came to a head about 5 years ago. Claire had just gotten her first serious boyfriend, James, and, as usual, my parents were gushing about how perfect he was and how lucky she was. I was happy for her, but during a family dinner, she made a very pointed remark about my romantic life. She said, and I quote, "It's okay if you're still single. Some people are just meant to be alone." Everyone laughed, and I didn't. That night, I left the house in tears. The next day, my parents called me oversensitive, saying I was taking a joke too seriously. That was the beginning of a long period of passive-aggressive remarks from Claire, where every time I tried to assert myself, she would mock me, often in front of other family members. I try to keep my distance for my own mental health. I moved to a different city for work and limited family visits. Initially, it seemed to help, but recently, things escalated again. Claire got engaged to James, and she immediately began sharing every detail of the wedding plans on social media. Invitations came last month, and I hesitated before RSVPing. I wanted to be supportive, but my anxiety flared at the thought of being in the same room as Claire, her new husband, and my judgmental parents for hours. The final straw was when she sent me a private message outlining the seating chart. She explained that my parents wanted me to sit next to her maid of honor, who I barely know and who has apparently been instructed to keep an eye on me. The message concluded with, "It would mean a lot if you were there for family unity, but I understand if you can't." I couldn't help but notice the guilt trip in her words. It was subtle, but it was there. I had a panic attack that night. I realized that attending might cause a severe mental health setback for me. I made a difficult decision. I sent my RSVP declining the invitation, citing health reasons. I also wrote a message to Claire explaining that I've been struggling with anxiety and that attending her wedding would be too overwhelming for me. I emphasized that I still love her and want her happiness, but I can't compromise my mental health. The fallout was immediate. My parents called me, furious. They accused me of being selfish and ruining Claire's special day. Claire also called, initially calm, but as I explained myself, she started yelling. She said I was being dramatic and that mental health wasn't a valid excuse. She even told me that if I cared about her, I would push through my discomfort to be there. After that, the rest of my extended family started taking sides. A few cousins and my aunt expressed understanding, saying they respected my boundaries. Others labeled me as the selfish sister who couldn't put family first. My friends are supportive, but they remind me that my family dynamics are complicated and that I'm not obligated to do anything that jeopardizes my mental health. I'm now facing weeks of indirect backlash online, including posts from my parents about family unity and standing by your siblings, clearly aimed at making me feel guilty. I've considered attending anyway, but just thinking about the event triggers severe anxiety attacks. I've also been receiving messages from Claire asking if I'm really going to ruin everything for her wedding photos. At this point, I feel trapped. I know I'm prioritizing my well-being over family expectations, but I can't help feeling guilty. I keep replaying memories of my childhood, try to justify my decision, and wondering if I'm overreacting. At the same time, I know that past interactions have made the family environment toxic for me, and attending could be damaging. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of tension and mental health struggles? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me over a family emergency? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 25F, and we've had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Our parents split when we were kids, and while I stayed mostly with our mom, Lily ended up living with her dad for a while. I've always felt protective of her, but we have very different personalities. I'm careful, quiet, and tend to overthink things. Lily is impulsive, loud, and often acts first without thinking of the consequences. Over the years, that difference has caused tension, but nothing that really escalated until recently. About a month ago, I was planning a solo trip abroad for a month. I had been saving for over a year, and this was a big deal for me because I don't often take vacations. It was a dream trip, and I had it all planned out with flights, accommodations, and tours booked months in advance. A week before I was supposed to leave, Lily calls me crying, saying she had a family emergency and needed me to come home immediately. I asked what was going on, and she was vague, saying it was serious, but that she couldn't tell me over the phone. I was worried, but reminded her I had already booked my trip and couldn't just cancel everything. She became upset and said that if I didn't come home, I didn't care about my family. I tried to reason with her, asking for at least some details so I could understand, but she refused. Ultimately, I stayed for my trip because I couldn't justify canceling what I'd been planning for over a year based on vague information. Fast forward a week later, I get a text from my mom saying everything was fine and the family emergency was actually that Lily had a minor car accident. She wasn't hurt badly, and the car was barely damaged. Apparently, she had just wanted me to come home so I would help her sort out the insurance and deal with the stress because she didn't feel like handling it herself. I was furious. Not only had she manipulated me, but she had also put me in a position where I was choosing between my long-planned dream trip and her emotional drama. I confronted her, and she didn't apologize. Instead, she said I was selfish for prioritizing a vacation over family and accused me of not loving her enough. I was hurt and ended up cutting contact with her for about 2 weeks because I didn't feel like dealing with the guilt trips. Now, the real issue. Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, who I actually like and get along with fairly well. She's been planning the wedding for months, and she announced that it would be in a small town about 4 hours from our parents' house. She invited me last week, and I noticed immediately that the invitation had a note saying that if I didn't RSVP within a few days, she would assume I wasn't coming and we wouldn't be expecting you. I didn't RSVP immediately because I wasn't sure if I even wanted to go after what happened with the car emergency. A few days later, she calls me and tells me that she's hurt. I haven't responded and says that if I don't come, she'll be deeply disappointed and that I need to make time for her, as family should always come first. She even mentioned that our mom was upset with me for not prioritizing family over my trip. I was already feeling anxious and frustrated because I felt like I was being manipulated again. Here's where it escalates. I decided I wasn't going. I sent her a long message explaining why. I told her that the way she handled the car accident was manipulative and that it made me question whether I could trust her. I said that while I love her, I can't put myself in a position where I feel pressured into doing something for her at the expense of my own life and plans. I offered to celebrate with her in a smaller, private way before or after the wedding if she wanted, but I made it clear I was not attending the ceremony. I thought this was fair, setting boundaries while still acknowledging her big day. Her response was explosive. She texted back that I was the worst sister ever, that I was ruining her wedding, and that I clearly didn't care about anyone but myself. She even went as far as tagging our mom in a follow-up text, saying I was letting the family down and that I was emotionally abusive by refusing to attend. My mom called me afterward, pleading with me to reconsider because it would destroy Lily's special day. I explained my side again, calmly, but my mom said I was being stubborn and selfish and accused me of holding grudges. I tried to reason with her, but she basically gave me an ultimatum: go to the wedding or risk damaging my relationship with Lily and the rest of the family permanently. I told her I wasn't going, and she got upset and hung up. Now, I feel like I'm being painted as the villain. I understand that it's a wedding and people want family there, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being coerced into attending an event under emotional blackmail. I offered alternatives, I explained my boundaries, and yet I'm the one being accused of being uncaring. I also feel conflicted because I do love my sister, and a part of me does feel guilty about missing her big day. I've been replaying every conversation in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently, but ultimately, I don't think I can go back on my decision without compromising my mental and emotional well-being. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she manipulated me over a fake family emergency last month. Character count, 6,423 if you want. I can also craft an even longer, more dramatic version hitting closer to 7,000 characters with extra tension, family fallout, and extended internal monologue to make it feel ultra-Reddit popular. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.